This is the login screen of Proteus MMX, and just a couple notes here. We have down below here an open service request panel, and that allows people who are not necessarily registered users of the system, like administrator here, to go ahead and submit a request for service. So if something is, let's say, down on the manufacturing line, someone who's on that line can submit a ticket and hopefully get that fixed. We also have mobile apps for all of the platforms that you see here, Android, Apple iOS, and actually Windows 10, that is. And those are fully native applications that you can take and do all the, well, most of the normal functions of Proteus itself that you're seeing in the window right here, as far as issuing work orders, tracking stock, basically anything that Proteus itself can do, you can do through the app. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. First thing you'll notice here is we have a set of performance indicators that pop up as soon as you log in, giving you an overview of what's going on in the system on the current day. On the left-hand side here, we have graphs for unscheduled versus scheduled work, and then a breakdown of the various work types. And a little bit below that, we have what we call the weekly overview here. And this is just giving you a top-down view of everything you have going on for this week. And we have a full suite of tools that allow you to manage this work, reassign it as necessary, cancel duplicate work orders, things like that. And also down below, we have a personalized message board for internal users in the system, and just a panel showing work orders that have been assigned to me. Now, if you've ever looked at a CMMS software package, a lot of this will look very familiar. They're all designed to track different things, but we differ in the way we present things, as well as the robustness of what we can do. Something to keep in mind. Assets, of course, are going to be anything that you would want to track maintenance-wise. So that can be anything from a steel press to an air conditioner. It's just something that you want to perform maintenance upon. That's kind of the heart of the system, in that the entirety of the system is designed to help you maintain assets. So everything to the right of this column is here to assist with the servicing of and maintenance of assets. Asset systems are another way to track assets. It's a way to put them in a line, for lack of a better word. The best analogy of what an asset system might be would be an assembly line. So there'd be a group of, let's say, 10 assets arranged in such a way that it would make a system. And the way it works in Proteus is if you do a work order against one of those assets, it treats the whole line as being down. So, and there's different ways you can work that, but it's a way to track where your assets are in various systems. Service request, mentioned a little bit about that before. In this context where we are right now, since I'm logged in as administrator, this would be where I would go ahead and either approve or decline a request. So here's a test one that's gone through, and you can see some of the details here. We have filter boxes at the top of every one of the grids in the system. You'll see this throughout the whole program. And that allows you to filter by date or asset or requester, so on and so forth. You'll notice here on the left-hand side, we have this tree. This is a way to differentiate the different physical locations that you're tracking within the system. We call these facilities. Essentially what that does, it allows you to segregate data based on a physical location. And you'll see this again throughout the whole program. So based on how the system is set up, I can have it so that a user can only see data from Colgate and not from Kansas City or Michigan Street. It's basically separated by role, and they'll see none of the other data. So if you're a large organization, that comes in really handy. Let's say you have a facility in New York and one in Seattle, Washington, for example. you can house those all within the same application, and they'll never see the other facility's data. So in this case, I have a service request, and I can accept or decline it. I'm going to go ahead and accept this. Sorry, that's the edit. Let me close this here. Here we are. And what happens is you'll see that disappeared. Since I accepted it, it actually becomes a live work order in the system. So this is the work order module. A lot of different things underneath here, but the main thing to note is that all of this is here to help you perform work orders. For example, time card allows you to assign employees to work orders. It also allows you to track the time on those work orders, although you can do that as well through the work orders itself. We also have various planning functions like labor load balancing, which allows you to manually move around employees to better fit their schedules. We have a top-down calendar showing you a month's worth of work orders at a time, and a labor planner where you can set things like hours worked, days off, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So once we have work orders in the system, they all come into this particular page. And if you'll notice on this column, we have work order type. In this case, it's indicating preventive maintenance. So once a scheduled work order activates, it also comes here into this general work orders category. So you have both the demand or reactive maintenance and the preventive maintenance all in one place. So once this work order is completed, you'd enter all your data, times, labor, et cetera, whatever it is that you want to track. And this is all very, very configurable, by the way. If you don't need one thing, you can hide it or just not use it at all. But once the work is done, you go ahead and close that work order, and it comes down here into closed work orders, where it's essentially maintained forever. And by closing work orders, what you're getting is A, the cost for materials and labor that were put into an asset, and B, the cause of failure, which allows you to trend your failures and hopefully avoid those in the future. And the rest of this is just tools to help you do that. You might be noticing there's a lot of controls, a lot of different things on the screen right here. And I just wanted to stop a minute and say that there are ways within Proteus for you to configure exactly what it is you see on the screen based on your role. We have rights controls down to the actual field level. So if you wanted a person in one role to see a field, but a person in another role not to, you can configure it like that. It's also worth noting that every field name that you see displayed at the top of the screen here can be changed to suit whatever your needs are. So we start you out with a generic set of fields. You can rename these to fit your needs any way you care to. Okay. Proteus also has a comprehensive inventory module. And inventory would be parts or materials that you would use on a work order. So you can track, for example, let's say plastic tubing. And as you use that plastic tubing on work orders, it'll automatically decrease from your inventory stock rooms. Also using parts, you can define a bill of materials for each asset. So by looking at that, you'll see the complete list of every single part that is possible to service on a particular asset. And we also have a tools module here where you can check in and out tools based upon a tool room that you would configure. And that's going to go ahead and track the date and time a tool is checked out and also by whom. The purchasing module goes hand in hand with inventory, and this is just a way for you to replenish stock. So you can create a requisition to start, approve the requisition, and it becomes a purchase order. And then once you receive the purchase order, those parts will automatically replenish your stock room parts levels. And you can also do things like create blankets purchase orders, which allows you to have a fixed amount of money with a given company, and every time you order from that company, a bit of that money will be taken away. Reorder list for parts that you want to keep on hand. If they fall below a certain quantity, they'll appear on this list. You can reorder them. Your history. We also have purchasing escalation. So this would be in cases where you have to have an approval to purchase a certain amount. So you can set up a escalation hierarchy to go, let's say, starting from the tech to his or her supervisor, to a manager, so on and so forth, until you get to the appropriate person that has authority to make the purchase based on cost. The associates would be those individuals who are going to appear on work orders as an actor. In other words, somebody who's either performing work or supervising work. So this would constitute the labor that would go onto your work order. And we also have what we call labor craft here that allows you to specify different pay rates for different actions or professions. So you can have an electrician level 1 as a labor craft, for example, and they would have a different hourly rate than, let's say, someone working with masonry. Okay, and that all gets taken into account when you assign the employee or the associate to the work order, and add hours, so on and so forth. This provider is really simple. This would be anybody who you purchase goods or services from. And we also have some fairly robust KPIs that we're always adding to here. We have a list of standards, as you can see here. For example, mean time to repair graph, root cause failure graph. Let's see if I can bring that up here. So here's the list of causes that are in the system right now. And what we can see here is the amount of downtime is, actually this shouldn't be a cause, this should just be a work type, but they chose in this database for whatever reason to have planned maintenance as a cause, but that's what's showing in this graph. So think of those 5 categories I was talking about earlier. You'd have those 5 in here, and you'd be able to, again, narrow down the causes of your unscheduled work orders. We can also do custom KPIs with your involvement, and essentially what that does is allows you to create a custom indicator based upon what you'd like to see. Here's a good example of that: work order summary. This is just tracking within this time frame all of the data that you see on the left-hand side here. So you get a really nice summary of percentages, as well as details such as total labor hours, preventive work order hours, so on and so forth. Reporting is also supported with Power BI. So if you have Power BI, which is a Microsoft reporting tool, or it's basically a way to create KPIs, we can tie into that and have those displayed within Proteus as well. There's also about 100 or so standard reports that are included with the system. Some of this mirrors what is in the KPIs, but there's pretty basic information. These are all output. And I'll just run the asset report, for example, here. And that's really all it is, just general listings for the most part. You'll get the most meat out of the KPIs. Company is just your general information. This is where you can set up your locations and such. This is what shows up in that tree we were talking about. Same with the facilities. We do have a comprehensive audit trail that essentially tracks everything in the system. So if I were to go and make a change to, let's say, a person's middle name under associates, that would be tracked in the audit trail. So any interaction that is had with the data in the system is tracked. Of course, we got a help file where you can submit a support ticket if you need to. And what I wanted to show you here under settings were some of the options that you have. There are a ton of different ways, excuse me, that you can configure the system to operate based on what you want to do. And that's something we would typically set up before you start using the system so everything follows a particular workflow. As for user rights and roles, we basically follow the Microsoft standard where you create a user and then you assign that user to a role so the system knows based on that role what they can and cannot do within the system. And again, we can get down to field level for that. So that is basically a top-down view of the system. And there's a lot more I could go into,